Hello, you are watching Shalom World News. I'm Rory McLennan coming to you from Glasgow, Scotland. Here are the latest headlines from around the world. Pope Francis once more called for dialogue to end the madness of war, not just in Ukraine, but also in Syria, Yemen and Myanmar. The Holy Father also denounced the childish logic of weapons and urged people to cease using them. Pope Francis reiterated his concern for the war, calling for disarmament and appealing for dialogue. He also highlighted the many forgotten wars wreaking death and destruction across the globe. The Pope also spoke about his recently concluded apostolic journey to Bahrain in the Persian Gulf during his weekly general audience at the Vatican. This was the 58th nation he had visited since the beginning of his pontificate, making it his second trip to the region. The pontiff remembered that his travel there was for the Bahrain Forum for Dialogue, which brought together religious leaders in the service of peace. He said dialogue is the oxygen of peace, even in domestic life, especially within families. In the Vatican, preparations are in full swing for observing the 6th World Day of the Poor on Sunday, November the 13th. The Dicastery for Evangelization has organised various initiatives in Rome that will be carried out throughout the week. These include free medical examinations in mobile clinics and the distribution of medicines to the poor in the Italian capital. In his apostolic letter Misericordia et Misera, Pope Francis established the day to mark the conclusion of the extraordinary Jubilee of Mercy. It has been observed annually on the 33rd Sunday since 2017. As in the previous editions, Pope Francis will preside over a Mass in St. Peter's Basilica with the participation of the poor and other faithful who wish to take part. At the end of the celebration, as many as 1,300 poor people will be offered a festive meal in the Paul VI Hall. The United States has joined 15 other countries in raising concern and creating awareness over blasphemy laws that are used to target minorities. In a recent study, researchers from Monash University in Melbourne discovered that at least 12 nations still use the death penalty as a deterrent against blasphemy and similar crimes. More than 80 nations have blasphemy laws which are deliberately used to silence the voices of religious minorities. The International Religious Freedom or Belief Alliance is a global coalition of nations devoted to defending religious freedom. The United States joined in solidarity with 15 other IRFBA countries, including Australia, Greece, Israel, Malta, Norway, Poland, Romania, Slovakia, and the United Kingdom. The group released a statement expressing its continued concern over blasphemy laws. The statement said it is crucial for nations like the United States to continue speaking out against such laws as the situation for those convicted of blasphemy worsens on a worldwide scale. In what seems to be a blow to the pro-life wave across the United States, voters in various states have supported moves to enshrine abortion rights in their constitutions. During the midterm elections, Americans in 5 states voted on the issue of abortion. Voters in California, Michigan and Vermont decided to include abortion rights in their state constitutions. Kentucky and Montana ballot initiatives sought to restrict abortion access. With the adoption of Article 22, or Proposal 5, Vermont is reportedly the first state to enshrine abortion rights in its constitution. According to the proposal, an individual's right to personal reproductive autonomy is fundamental to the freedom to choose one's life path. Therefore, it shall not be denied unless a compelling state interest is justified. Proposal 3 in Michigan would establish an individual's right to make and carry out decisions about all aspects of pregnancy, including contraception, sterilization, infertility, pregnancy, and abortion. Kentucky has rejected a constitutional amendment that would have declared abortion to be illegal. The outcome, however, will not automatically overturn the state's current legislation, which almost entirely prohibits abortion. Citizens in California have approved Proposition 1, which prohibits the state from interfering with an individual's reproductive freedom. The state of Montana is yet to declare. An association of more than 3,000 Catholic businessmen in the Philippines has decided to cap the price of their merchandise during the Christmas season. Festivities begin in the first week of December, and there is a huge demand for various commodities. The Catholic Businessmen Association of the Philippines decided on November the 8th to set a price cap on items to avoid taking advantage of the strong demand around Christmas time. The association decided to do so after the Catholic bishops of the archipelago urged businessmen not to engage in profiteering during the festive season. The businessmen also view this decision of theirs as an occasion to reflect on their obligations to God and to country. The association has also requested that the Department of Trade and Industry make sure that the Price Act, a regulation that forbade hoarding and price manipulation of essential commodities, is followed. The next decennial exposition of the holy relics of St. Francis Xavier will begin on November the 21st in 2024. That is according to a statement from the Archdiocese of Goa and Daman in Western India. Cardinal Filipino issued a special decree announcing the 7-week-long exposition of the sacred relics of the 16th century Spanish saint and co-founder of the Society of Jesus. The mortal remains of the saint are kept in a silver sarcophagus on a side altar in the Baroque Basilica of Bom Jesus in Old Goa, the former seat of the viceroys when Goa was a part of the Portuguese Empire. For almost 2 centuries after the death of the saint, his body was incorrupt. Later, however, frequent dismemberment for obtaining first-class relics caused the body to shrivel and to dry, forcing the church to call it sacred relics instead of an incorrupt body. During the exposition, the sarcophagus will be lowered and placed on a special podium for thousands of pilgrims to venerate the relics of the saint, who is known as the second apostle of India. The previous exposition, which ended in January in 2015, attracted close to 4 million visitors. In a case that went all the way to the US Supreme Court, the city of Boston has agreed to pay more than $2.1 million to a Christian legal organization that supported a lawsuit after the city refused to fly a Christian flag outside the city hall. The legal battle started in 2017 when city resident Hal Shurtleff and his Camp Constitution group asked city authorities permission to hoist a Christian flag, which was white with a red cross on a blue background in the upper left corner on one of the poles in City Hall Plaza as part of Constitution Day. However, the request was denied and the matter then went to court. Liberty Council founder and chairman Matt Staver expressed his satisfaction in a statement, saying, "We are thrilled that after 5 years of litigation and a unanimous victory at the US Supreme Court, we partnered with Hal Shurtleff to finally let freedom fly in Boston, the cradle of liberty." The Law Department of Boston found that the compensation was reasonable based on the billing statements of Liberty Council. The Mexican Supreme Court of Justice has postponed the voting and debate over the proposal of a minister to forbid the placement of nativity scenes in public spaces in Yucatan. The first chamber of the Supreme Court of Justice postponed the hearing of the draft proposed by Minister Juan Luis González Alcántara Carranza, forbidding nativity scenes and other religious symbols in public areas in the state. The proposal was scheduled to be discussed on Wednesday, November the 9th. The delay comes nearly 24 hours after civil society groups presented the Supreme Court with more than 40,000 signatures urging respect for religious freedom. Various Christian organisations had decried the same, addressing it as a threat to religious freedom. At least 3 civilians, including a month-old baby, were killed, and many were reportedly abducted in an attack by the Allied Democratic Forces Islamist militants in the Democratic Republic of Congo. According to local officials, ADF militants attacked the village of Kabasha, about 10 kilometres from the town of Beni in North Kivu province, on Wednesday morning. The attack began early in the morning and lasted nearly an hour as the rebels ransacked shops and set them on fire. According to witnesses, many remain missing, including a doctor and 2 guards at the health centre, pointing to a possible abduction. The latest attack comes 2 weeks after a similar attack on a centre in the Maboya region, in which a Catholic nun and a nurse were killed. The month of October saw blood flowing in the West African nation of Nigeria. More than 90 innocent people were killed by armed gangs and militants in various attacks in Makurdi and Katsina Allah. According to statistics shared by the Catholic Diocese of Makurdi, armed Fulani herdsmen continue to wreak havoc in Nigeria's Benue state. A report says that 29 people were killed in Islamist attacks in September. The statistics, which also cover the first 7 days of November, were shared by Bishop Wilfred Chikpa Anagbe of Makurdi, who expressed his dismay that violence against Christians in Nigeria remains unchallenged. Decrying the genocidal attacks against Christians, the prelate sought prayers for the departed souls. According to the report, 23 separate attacks occurred between October the 1st and November the 7th in areas served by the diocese and a few other areas served by Katsina Allah, which means that hardly a day went by without an attack. The October 19th attack on the Gabeji community served by Katsina Allah diocese was the deadliest, killing 39 people. Pope Francis has unveiled a new sculpture in St. Peter's Square dedicated to the homeless. The statue, named Sheltering, was sculpted by Canadian artist Timothy Schmaltz, and it was blessed on Wednesday. The bronze sculpture was unveiled against the backdrop of the 6th World Day of the Poor, instituted by Pope Francis. The sculpture comprises a homeless person covered by a blanket pulled over him by a flying dove. The sculpture intends to shed light on the global issue of homelessness and to promote solutions for the same. It also draws attention to the mission of the 13 Houses campaign, which is an initiative of the Homeless Alliance of the Vincentian Family that brings together religious congregations, lay associations and charities inspired by St. Vincent de Paul's life. During an interview with Vatican media, Schmaltz described the bronze sculpture while thanking the Holy Father for blessing it. Father Guillermo Trevino Jr. of the Diocese of Davenport in the United States is the winner of the 2022 Cardinal Bernardin New Leadership Award. This prestigious award is sponsored by the Catholic Campaign for Human Development. It is the anti-poverty program of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. Father Guillermo will be honoured at a reception on November the 15th during the Bishops' Annual General Assembly in Baltimore, Maryland. He is the parish priest of St. Joseph West Liberty and St. Joseph Columbus Junction. He is also the chaplain and co-chair of Escucha Mi Voz Iowa, a faith-based organisation in Iowa City. The priest was recognised for assisting parish leaders and community members to gather pandemic relief for thousands of excluded immigrant workers in eastern Iowa. The award recognises a young Catholic between 18 and 40 who has demonstrated leadership in fighting against poverty and injustice in the United States. It is named after Cardinal Joseph Bernardin, who served as the Archbishop of Chicago from 1982 until his death in 1996. Now, the Iranian regime is targeting lawyers as anti-government protests roil the nation. In recent weeks, over 30 lawyers, including at least 3 engaged in the defence of Christian defendants, arrested for having converted from Islam, have been jailed. Reports say that 6 of the lawyers have been released on bail. However, the rest remain in prison. This comes as more than 200 lawmakers have sought harsher penalties for those taking part in the protests in the country. Protests are simmering following the custodial death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini, who was arrested for not properly wearing the hijab. And those are your latest headlines. Do join us again tomorrow for more, and do remember, you can also visit swnews.org for more updates. Shalom.